For this video, we're going to be talking about how we write equations from graphs, and we're also going to be writing descriptions for. Okay. So when I say descriptions, I need to describe the slope, which we're calling M, and the initial value, B, or what we also call the y-intercept. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. It's going to be really easy to pick out. Make sure you write this down. And the y-axis is always the one that stands up. The x one is flat. Okay? And it's really easy to pick out, like I said, just where it touches the y-axis. So make sure you know this part. It's very important. The slope can be found by calculating rise over run. And you should have already watched the video on that, but I'll go back and talk about rise over run. What you do, number one, is you draw a triangle. And it's got to be a right triangle, okay? From between 2 points. And I always start at the bottom, so then I calculate rise over run. And I go from the bottom point to the top. But you don't have to, you can go from top to bottom. So if you rise up, and that's going to be what we're doing because we're starting from the bottom and going to the top, then your slope will be positive. If you were to go from the top to the bottom, see bottom to top, if you're at the bottom, and I'm going to color code these. If you're at the bottom and you go to a point that's at the top, let me do it this way. I'll do this in purple. Definitely did not change the purple. Okay, there we go. So we rise up, draw a triangle. Let me do this in black. Rising up, this will be up, will give us a positive slope. And that's my triangle right there, guys. Okay. And then your run, if you run to the right, well, if you rise up, it'd be positive. If you go down, it would be negative. And I'm going to explain that. Then I go to the run, okay? The rise goes up and down. Now, suppose you didn't want to rise up to get from one point to another. Suppose you wanted to go down. Instead of the bottom point to the top point, you wanted to go from the top point down to the bottom point, making a triangle. So you have to go down. In that particular case, your slope would be negative. You have to turn to the left. Okay. Now, when you turn left and right, that's going to be your run. Your run runs left and right. Your rise runs up and down. Okay. I'm going to go back and erase this. I'm going to still have these 2 points. If I rise up, that's positive. But I now want to take a look at the run. If I run to the right, this is right. Then my run is positive. POS or positive. Okay. Okay, now what happens if you run to the left? So for instance, if I went from this green dot, and that was originally purple, so let me fix that. From that purple dot, and I went down and made a right triangle, I would have to turn and go to the left, guys. I would have to go left. So if you go left, if you ever turn left, your slope would be negative. Your round would be negative, excuse me. So the positive can go up or down. If it goes up, the rise can go up or down. If it goes up, it's positive. If the rise goes down, it's negative. And this is once you draw that right triangle. If your run runs to the right, it's positive. If your run runs to the left, it's negative. And this is all going to help you calculate rise over run, which is nothing but slope, or M, okay? So to write an equation, we got to have two things, M and B. So with that being said, what I'm going to do, the easiest thing for me to calculate in A is B. Let me make it darker. So I'm going to look at this line and see where it touches the y-axis. So that green line that I highlighted touches my y-axis is this line, guys. That's my y-axis. That's my y. So the y-intercept is where they touch or meet or cross, okay? So it touches right here. They intersect right there. And that's at a y of -1. So your b is -1. Because right here in the middle is 0. And these are just number lines. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, and so forth. On the x-axis, if this is 0, that's +1, +2, +3, +4, +5, +6. And if this is 0, that's -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. It's just number lines, okay? So keep in mind that and if you need to draw this, draw this. I'm going to do this one in a different color because the y-axis I had in gold. So let me put it back. So if 0 is right here, that's 1, 2, 3, and that's -1, -2, -3, -4, and so forth. And that's the y-axis that stands up, okay? It's just your y number line. And then the x number line is the flat one. It's the x-axis, but it's really an x number line, okay? If that's 0 in the middle, then that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. And to the left of 0 is -1, -2, -3, and so forth, okay? So I can tell on the y-axis, which is the gold one, then my line, my green line, touches my y-axis, which is the gold one, at -1, because this is 0, okay? So it touches the y-axis at 0. Now all I need to do is find the slope. So I'm going to erase some of this stuff. I can clearly see that the y-axis, that B is at -1 right there. Now I just need to find the slope. To find the slope, I'm going to calculate rise over run. But to do that, I need to draw a triangle. Now, I don't care what 2 points you pick. Since I already have something for the y-intercept, I'll pick some other point. So I'll pick this one. It doesn't matter. Just pick another point, okay? And I'm going to draw a right triangle on it. And I want to draw my right triangle going up. So that's a rise of 1, 2, 1, 2. So that's up 2. So that's positive because it's up. And then to get to the red dot, I would have to turn and go to the left. So I go to the left, but that's left 1. Left 1 is a -1. Remember, if you went left, it was negative on the run, okay? So the slope simplified is just -2. And when I write my equation, I write my equation in y equals mx plus b form. And all I do is replace m and b. I'm going to keep the variables x and y. So y stays, m changes to -2. Put your x behind it, plus b, well, b is -1. So I'm not going to put plus -1. I'm just going to put -1. So that is the equation of this line. Now I'm going to show you something, guys. You didn't have to choose those 2 points to calculate slope. I could have chosen, let me do it in red, this point, and let me do another one in green, and this point. But I tend to draw my line going up 1, 2. I always start at the bottom and go to the top. Just have it. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And make sure you count it correctly. That's 1 loop, 2 loops, 3 loops, 4 loops, 5 loops, 6 loops. So that's up 6. So you could have also said I had a rise of 6. And then the run would have been to the left. 1, 2, 3 jumps. So that would have been left 3, which is -3. But 6 divided by -3 is still -2. So it doesn't matter what 2 points you choose. Once you simplify what you have, you're going to get the same number, okay? Now let's take a look at B. We want to write an equation for this line. All right, so I'm going to label what my y initial value is first. So my initial value, and that's a bad line because this line touches it right here and you really can't. Well, you know what? We're going to say this is down -1 and this is in between -1 and -2. So we're going to say the B is -1.5. Okay? I'm just estimating it because it is. It's not something I would normally do, but I guess when I printed it, the line shifted. Let's hope they didn't shift on these. What I did on one. I'm going to have to redraw my lines, guys. But I redraw it on paper. Okay. So let me change this. Yeah, hold on. Y'all going to have to change it for me too, okay? So I want you to not focus on that line. I'm going to focus on, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. Let's focus on something like this. Put a point. Go up 2, put a point there. Then just follow me and put a point there. And go down here and put a point there for me, okay? Can y'all do that? So we're not going to use this line anymore. I want you to use this line with these new points I have. Draw that in for me, okay? So I'm going to let it sit there so you can see where the points are. Pause the video and put those, where I have the red dots, you put new points and cross that original line out, okay? And draw a line through. So we're going to use that. All right, so here in this case, B is on the y-axis. B touches that point right there. I'm at the y-axis. The line touches the y-axis right here. So B is up 2 on the y-axis. It's +2 then. And your slope is simply rise over run. So I'm going to color code these points. I'm going to color this one blue. I'm going to color this one green. And I'm just going to pick 2 points and draw a right triangle. I just picked 2 consecutive points, and I always go up. So that's up 1, 2. If you know you get confused on the counting, just do loops. 1 loop, 2 loops. So that's up 2. So rise of 2. And then you're going to go to the right. 1, 2, 3. So right 3. We just have a positive run. So your slope is 2 over 3. So the equation is written in the form y equals mx plus b. You're just going to replace m and b. You're going to keep that y and x variable just like it is, okay? So you're going to keep the y. M's going to change to 2/3 connected to x. Plus your b is positive, so just put +2. So that's your equation. That's all you do. All right, we're going to skip over C because that line is off too, okay? Let's go to D. D doesn't have any points on it. So if you find a line that doesn't have any points on it, then you make your own points. I can tell it crosses the y-axis right here. This is the y-axis. This is the x. And I can use this point because I can read it. If that's 0, that's -1, -2, -3, -4. That's -4 on the x. And on the y-axis, that means I went up 1 unit to get to it, okay? So that's -4, 1. So I had to go to the left 4, and you all, and up 1. Do not get this mixed up with rise, with slope. Slope is rise before run. But when you name a point, always go left or right first. So when you name a point, you always go left or right first, and then up or down. Because left or right gives you your x coordinate, and up or down gives you your y coordinate, okay? Now, slope is just the opposite. Slope, you do your y before your x. You change your y before you change your x. So it's the opposite of like what it requires to name a point. To name a point, you put your x first and then your y. But to do slope, it's your y before your x. They're opposites of one another, okay? It's up and down before left and right on slope. So I picked that point, and I can also read this one. If that's 0, that's to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that has an x of 4 and a y that's up 1, 2, 3. You have to go 3 units up to get it. But you don't write all that now. I'm just showing you how to name these if you have trouble. And some students prefer to do this. They just prefer to put the numbers on the number line. And if this is what you have to do, then that's what you have to do. Put your numbers on the number line. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. So if you prefer to put the numbers on the number line, go ahead. And you can easily see that this point right here is to the right 4 and then up 3 to get 4, 3. And then here, this point is to the left to -4 and only up +1, okay? So if you prefer to put the numbers down, go for it. It's up to you. Let me erase that because I don't need to name the points. I'm just showing you how you name them, okay? And I wanted you to know that the way you name slope is opposite of the way you name a point. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I know that I'm going to list the B, which is your y-intercept or your initial value, is right here at 2. So I got B of 2. It's right here. Let me do it in green. That's where it touches the y-axis. And then I'm going to draw a right triangle. And I'll just go from here. So that means I'm up 1, 2. Up 2. So my rise. I'm going to do rise over run. My rise is up 2. And then I'm to the right. I've got to go to the right to get to the blue dot. Let me do this one in purple. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have to go to the right 8. And that simplifies, you can divide them both by 2. That simplifies to 1 over 4. Now, some of you are saying, well, Miss Blue, why didn't you just pick the other 2 points that were closest to one another? And you could have. And that's probably the easiest thing to do. But I just wanted to show you that you can pick points that are farther away and still do it. So we could have gone from the red dot to the green dot. That's up 1. So I could have said the rise is 1. And then it's right 1, 2, 3, 4. And I could have gone straight to the slope of 1/4 instead of having to simplify. But once you know that, you're going to replace your M and your B. Leave your Y and your X. Your M is 1/4. Attach it to X, and your B is positive, so put +2. And that's your equation. Okay, let's look at a real life problem. Okay, let me see what this is. All right, so I can tell you on the y-axis, guys, because I don't have a title. I'm missing a title. I'm going to put a title up here just by looking at what's on the y-axis, and that's my fault. So on the y-axis, we have gallons of water. And if you watch that video on independent and dependent, then you know y is your dependent. It depends on something else. Just your dependent variable. And you should know that x is your independent. Now, what's on the x-axis? That's my little x down here. Or it's the flat line. And it's time and hours. Okay? So this on the y was gallons of water. On the x, it's the independent variable. And I know I stressed that in the independent variable is a thing that happens first. And I told you all, if it's involving time, time will always happen first. Time has to go by before anything can happen, okay? And that's going to be the time in hours. All right. So I just want you to know how to pick your independent and dependent variable. All right, so let's see. I'm going to try to find B. Well, I know I have. Let me go back and write a title. I'll tell you what's going to do that. So I got gallons of water and I got time and hours. And so I can tell, I'm going to write B first. I'm going to go back and get the title. B, here's your y-axis. And it's touching the y-axis right there at 175. That's 175 gallons, and your x is 0. So that's the ordered pair: 0, 175. Now keep in mind, this is the x. So that I'm going to show you how to read this, guys. I don't know if you've read this or not. You know how to read these because I know Miss Thompson taught this. At 0 hours, because 0 right here, this 0 is on the x-axis and it means hours. At 0 hours, then a container has 175 gallons of water. And I'm having to break this down because this is a real life problem. So I need you to know how to read it. So at 0 hours, there is 175 gallons of water in something. I don't know because I left the title off. All right, there's another point down here. Let's see what that is. Okay, so the x on this one is a 7. Okay, that means after or at 7 hours, let me write that a little better. At 7 hours, and then your y is at that point a 0. So that order pair is 7, 0. So let's talk about what that means. That means at 7 hours, there is 0, because that's your y, and your y is referring to gallons of water. There is 0 gallons of water in the container. So I just want to break down how to read these points first, okay? All right, see if you can read this. Let's think about this, and I'm going to do this for the black. See if you can read that, because that's the point too. That's to the right 4 and up to the right 4 and then up to the number 170, to 75. So what does that mean? What does the point 475 mean in terms of this graph? Okay. So you should distinguish that 4 is on the x-axis, so it's 4 hours. And 75 is on the y-axis, and that means gallons of water. So all that means is that after 4 hours, this container only has 75 gallons of water. So I'm just going to go back. At 0 hours, it has, before any time has gone by, that container was full. That's what it was when it was full. Okay? If it had 175 gallons and no time has passed by, this is the amount of water to begin with. Okay, that's the amount we started with. We began with, okay? And then this is the amount after 4 hours, and this is the amount of water after 7 hours. So clearly you can tell in the beginning it was 175 gallons, and after 4 hours, only 75, and after 7 hours, there was none. So clearly you can tell this water is leaking out. So I'm going to label this as the amount of water leakage from some container. All right. So basically, you really got to know how to read points, guys. And you can only read points on a real life graph by looking at what the X is talking about and what the Y axis is talking about. They'll tell you everything. And I'm going to give you one more. Just practicing reading. Let's do this blue one that I'm putting right here. So this blue one is an X of 2. So it's an X of 2. That's hours. So put 2 hours. Always when you write these, put what they are up above them like I'm doing. Like I'm putting hours up above 2. So that's an X of 2. And that's a Y of 125. I'm going to do this in a different color. So the 125 is on the Y-axis, which is water. So it's that many gallons of water left. Just making sure you know how to read these points. You got to be able to read them. And to read them, you just go off of what's on the X. Like this is 6 hours. That's 7 hours. This is 25 gallons of water, 50 gallons of water, 75 gallons of water, 100 gallons of water. It tells you clearly what they are if you read the descriptions on the axes, okay? All right, I hope that made sense. All right, but I found B and got a little sidetracked because I forgot to put my title. So I'm going to erase all of this. But to write an equation, we don't need just B. We need the slope, okay? The slope is rise over run. And I'm going to pick 2 points and just connect the dots. So I'm going to pick this black one and the blue one. And this is not 1, 2, because clearly these are not counting up by ones. This is up 25, and then to get from 100 to 25, it's up 25 more. So I went up a total of 50. When you have a real life problem, please pay attention to what you're counting by. Please, on each axis, okay? So I went up 50, and then I have to turn, and to get to the blue dot, I'm going to have to go to the left. Now, I can count this as 1 and 2. I'm going to tell you why. Because to get from 4 to 3, that's 1. 3 to 2, these are counting by ones, and these are counting by 25. So the y-axis is counting I'm going to put up here by the y by 25, and by the x by ones, okay? So you got to really, really pay attention to that. Not everything counts by one. So that's to the left. Since the y-axis, the x-axis is counting by ones, I'm good. So that's to the left, 2. Okay, to the left 2 is negative 2. So my slope is negative 25. And I could tell you that the slope was negative anyway because this thing is going downhill, okay? It's going downhill from left to right. All right, so now time to write the equation, and we're going to explain what each part means. The equation can be written in this form. Let me take that out. Y equals mx plus b. You're going to be replacing m and b. So m is negative 25 attached to the x, and b is positive 175. Now let's talk about that, what that means. So this 25, negative 25, what does that mean? Some of you may have already guessed what that means. What's this slope mean? Well, I'm going to go back. Rise was on the y-axis, okay? Rise goes up and down like the y-axis goes up and down. So rise is associated with the y-axis. And your run runs left and right. Left and right, like the x-axis. All right, so what was the y-axis? What was on the y-axis? Well, on the y-axis was gallons of water, so that's 50 gallons. Okay. And then down here, what's on the x-axis? On the x-axis is hours, so you want to put your units. For the rise, you want to put the unit on the y, and for the run, you want to put the unit that's on the x-axis. And it'll tell you that that's negative 25 gallons. You just put the word per between them, basically. Negative 25 gallons per hour. And put HR for hour. If you can just tell me what's on the y-axis, what unit is on the y-axis, gallons, and put it where your rise is. And then what unit is on the x-axis, and put it where your run is. And put the word per between them. It'll tell you what that slope means. That means something is losing 25 gallons per hour. How do I know it's losing and not gaining? Well, it's negative. If it were positive, it'd be gaining 25 gallons per hour. Some container is losing 25. I'm going to put GL for gallons. And I better put it all out before I can confuse somebody. The container is losing 25 gallons of water per hour. But what's this 175 mean? What's a B of 175? This is my M of negative 25. What's my B of 175 mean? Well, this is what we call an initial value. So basically at 0 hours, and it's always at 0. At 0, what happened? At 0, at an x of 0, and it's an x of 0. Okay, at an x of 0, which means at 0 hours, that's my x, that's an x of 0. At 0 hours, there was, what's the 175 talking about? 175 gallons of water. Okay? Initially, that was 175 gallons of water. Let me see if I have enough room to write that. Yeah. Initially means to start with. In other words, the full container was 175 gallons of water. So I hope everybody knows that B is talking about what's on the y-axis. What is this on the y-axis? Look at y-axis. Look at y-axis unit, and it'll tell you what that means. 175 gallons of water, and it's always going to be at 0 something, whatever it's talking about down here. Okay? So like this was at 0 hours, okay? Whatever it's talking about down at the bottom, it's going to be at your 0 whatever. And then for the slope is the easiest thing. You guys got to remember, rise is associated with y, so you put what it's talking about on the y. Run is associated with, this is rise, this is run. Run is associated with x. You put what it's talking about and stick the word per between them, gallons per hour. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Your family is driving from Cincinnati to St. Louis. The graph relates your distance from St. Louis in miles. And the distance, they already told you was y. And it's the unit is miles. That's what you're measuring in. The unit is just what you're measuring in. And the travel time is x. Time is x, and it's in hours. That's your unit. And it says calculate the slope and rate of change. We're actually going to write an equation and describe what it means. That's what we're going to do, okay? So I'm going to find B. And if this one does have a title, it's driving distance. I'm going to find B. So B is where it touches the y-axis. So it touches the y-axis at 360. And what's that? It's miles. So this is talking about 360 miles. I'm going to go ahead and write at 0 what? Well, what's on the x-axis? What's on the bottom? At 0 hours. The distance, and it's talking about distance. So at 0 hours, the distance is 360 miles. Because this is distance. So basically, before they start their trip, they got to go 360 miles. They got to cover 360. Because no time has passed by, so they haven't driven anywhere. Okay? Now I just need to do M. All right, and the y-axis is associated with rise, and the x-axis is associated with run. So when I write these numbers, I'm going to put the units behind them, okay? Since it's a real life problem. So let me pick 2 points. I'm going to pick just these two that I see. No, let's pick something else. Those are too far away. Let's pick this one I can read. That's the point 2 and 200. I'm going to do it in something besides red. Besides blue, I'm going to do. That's the point 2 and 240. Okay. All right, so I'm going to draw a right triangle to calculate my slope. And let's see if I went up 3. Let's see. This y-axis is definitely not counting by 3s. 240 to 80 is plus 40. These are counting by from 0 to 40. These are counting by 40s, guys. Okay? They're counting by 40s. Eraser, please. All right, so since they're counting by 40, that's up. My goodness. Let me erase this point. I need a little more room. That's up 40, 80, and 40 more is 120. So that's up 120. So it's positive. And I'm going to go ahead and put the unit for the y-axis for the rise. So that's 120 miles. And then the run, I'm running to the left. Let's see if I'm running to the left. If it's by 1. So let's see. To get from 0 to this one, that's 0.5. That's a half. 1. That's 1.5. 2. 2.5. 3. So these are counting by 0.5s. Okay. These were counting by 40s. These were counting by 0.5s or halves. So every time we move over, we're going to count a half. So we go into the black dot. A half, 1, 1.5, 2. So that would be 2 left. 2 to the left would be -2, okay? But now, if you move left, you got to put my units down here. The x-axis runs left and right because it's flat, okay? It's horizontal. So look what is on the x-axis. I know I probably didn't spell it right. I'm tired because it's 1:12 in the morning. Okay, what's on the x-axis? Well, on the x-axis, it's talking about hours. Okay. But all you got to do, I don't have to put that there. All you have to do is put the word per between them, and it'll pretty much set this up. So this is going to be, when I simplify this, -60 miles per hour. So what does that mean? That for every hour they go, they decrease their distance by 60 miles. How do I know it's decreased? Because the distance is going down. And I hope that happens. If you got a distance to cover, the longer you drive, I hope you keep cutting your distance down. If not, you're doing something wrong. All right, so all this means is that for every hour they drive, they shorten their distance. Shorten, not gain, because it's negative. They don't gain 60 miles. They don't gain a distance of 60 miles. They shorten their distance by 60 miles because it's negative. So when you write the equation, you're going to write it in the form y equals mx plus b. And I'm just going to replace m, which is at negative 60 miles per hour, and b, which means that the starting distance was 360. Going to replace those two with y equals m changes to negative 60. Attach your x plus your b, which is 360. That's the equation for this line. Means we start at a distance of 360 miles. Okay, and that's at 0 hours. We haven't gone anywhere. That b is always at the 0, whatever that unit is down here on the x-axis, okay? And this just means it's a decrease of 60 miles per hour. Hope this makes sense, guys. Just trying to teach you how to read these charts, these graphs, okay? All right, thank you. That's it. Now I gotta go all the way back to figure out how to cut this thing off. Instead of it just being on my tab, I gotta go. All right, that's it, guys.